This is Ira, and welcome to Ocean Liners on Print, where we travel through ocean liner history via my collection of ocean liner memorabilia and research. This is your key source for exciting ocean liner content. In this presentation, we will discuss a brochure from the Baltic Shipping Company. The Mikhail, Lermentov, and Alexander Pushkin and the brochure were part of a series of Soviet ships that started service from 1964 to 1972. The Alexander Pushkin and Mikhail Lermentov entered service respectively in 1965 and 1972. Other ships in the series included the Ivan Franko, Taras Shevchenko, and the Shota Rustaveli. These 5 ships were nearly identical and were of 20,000 tons and 578 feet in length. Of all 5 ships, the most historic one was the Mikhail Lermontov, and not for a good reason. In February 1986, she sank off New Zealand after hitting a reef. One crew member died. What's hard to believe is that the ship had just left Picton, New Zealand, and was under the control of the harbor pilot when this happened. Today, the wreck is a big attraction for divers, as it is at a shallower depth than the Andrea Doria. Check out this sonar image of the wreck. The Alexander Pushkin was well known in its later life as the Marco Polo of the Orient Line. The Orient Line purchased the ship in 1991. It served the Orient Line till 2003 when it was sold to CMV, where she sailed until 2020. The ship was scrapped in 2021. If you like what you are watching, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Thank you. And now, onto this brochure from 1975. Quote, Cruises to Europe from New York, Montreal, M.S. Mikhail Lermontov and M.S. Alexander Pushkin, close quote. The owner of these ships was the Baltic Shipping Company. Quote, what a unique opportunity. You will experience the traditional Russian hospitality from the moment you step aboard. You will also quickly learn that your enjoyment is of the utmost importance to our staff, and our cuisine includes continental favorites with a wide selection of specialties and wines from many republics of the Soviet Union. The well-stocked bars feature Russian vodkas, Armenian cognac, and of course, most of your own favorites. These 2 modern 20,000-ton cruise liners accommodating up to 700 passengers each are fully stabilized and built to the most exacting safety and technical specifications. The staterooms are spacious, air-conditioned, most with an ocean view, and are equipped with private telephone and 3-channel music programs. Closed quote. When talking about the features of the staterooms aboard these ships, they fail to mention that nearly half of the staterooms lack private facilities. Quote, the ship's facilities include a glass-domed indoor-outdoor heated swimming pool, sauna, 5 bars, 2 nightclubs, duty-free gift shops with authentic Russian furs and handicrafts, beauty parlor, barber shop, library, theater, nursery with trained attendants, and a fully equipped hospital. Shipboard entertainment will be a feature of your trip. Traditional Russian songs and dances by members of the ship's crew provide a memorable part of the after-dinner pleasure, and a fine dance orchestra completes the program. These one-class cruise vessels give every passenger the advantage of having complete run of the ship, which creates a wonderful degree of cruise informality not found on other ships. And there, closed quote. Having complete run of the ship is a benefit, especially for tourist class passengers who otherwise, and a ship with defined class boundaries would mean that those tourist class passengers would only have access to the least desirable parts of the ship. On the Baltic Shipping Company ships, tourist class passengers had access to all public rooms and all public decks. Also, these ships were proud to exhibit Russian and Soviet culture. 2 crew members for every 3 passengers. That sounds like a Jan and Dean song. Actually, that is a high ratio of crew to passengers. Quote, only Baltic Shipping gives you the time and opportunity and can arrange on board for sightseeing in each port. In Leningrad, as an added convenience, the ship can also serve as your hotel during your 2 or 3 day visit. What most will you remember about your voyage? Judging from our passengers' comments, you will undoubtedly recall your trip as one of the most fascinating experiences in your life, and you will especially remember the officers and crew who really went out of their way to make your trip so enjoyable. Closed quote. The MS Mikhail Lermentov and MS Alexander Pushkin belong to the Baltic Shipping Company, members of the International Passenger Ship Association. Under safety information, quote, the MS Mikhail Lermentov, built in 1971, and MS Alexander Pushkin, built in 1965, registered in the USSR, meet the international safety standards for new ships developed in 1960 and the 1966 fire safety requirements, close quote. These ships were designed to meet the highest safety requirements of the day. Under one-way passenger fares, we can see that of 9 category levels of staterooms, categories 6 to 9, which is 4 out of 9 categories, lack private facilities. For the Alexander Pushkin, which entered service in 1965, it's hard to believe that it was made with half the staterooms lacking private facilities. It's truly bizarre that the Mikhail Lermontov, which entered service in 1972, was made with the same proportion of staterooms lacking private facilities. That type of proportion of staterooms lacking private facilities was to be expected in a 1930s vintage ship. Under special fares, some things one typically doesn't see are student fares where, quote, students must present their international student cards for student fares, close quote. Special emigrant fares, special reductions of 10% off the one-way basic season fares and 15% off the one-way summer season fares are available for emigrants traveling to the USA or Canada, closed quote. Quote, stay aboard in Leningrad. Passengers wishing to stay on board ship during the stay in Leningrad may do so. Charges will be $35 per person per day, which includes cabin, meals on board ship, and 2 in-tourist tours daily. Stay aboard charges are payable at time of ticketing. Closed quote. Intourist was and is still today a government-run tourist agency which controls tourism in Russia and, of course, back in the day when it was the Soviet Union. Intourist controls where people go as well as the impression people receive about what is considered Russia today or what was the Soviet Union back in the day. During the summer of 1975, the Mikhail Lermentov offered a cruise plan that was a deviation from transatlantic service from the rest of the year. These cruises started and ended in New York and visited destinations including Boston, the Saguenay River, Charlottetown, Nassau, and Bermuda. Take a look at the map above. If there's anything that concerns you about it, please place your comments below. I'm going to give you 10 seconds before I continue. The Alexander Pushkin had its summer cruise schedule, but instead offered cruises starting and ending in Montreal. These cruises went to Gaspe, Bermuda, Havana, Nassau, Sydney, St. Pierre and Miquelon, Quebec, and Bagotville. Getting back to the map, what concerns me about the map is that it suggests that Cuba is in the middle of the Atlantic, not the Caribbean Sea. Let's see what nuggets we can uncover in the general information section. Restrictions as to baggage contents. Quote, dangerous articles such as fireworks, matches, gunpowder, gasoline, cartridges, moving picture films, etc., must be under no circumstances be enclosed in baggage, close quote. U.S. income tax clearance. Quote, alien residents in the United States should provide themselves with an income tax clearance obtainable at any office of the U.S. Department of Internal Revenue. United States citizens do not require clearance, close quote. Customs re-entry permits. Quote, cameras, portable radios or record players, guitars, etc. should be declared to customs officers when embarking and permits secured to cover re-entry to Canada or USA of such citizens without payment of duty, closed quote. Physical disabilities and pregnancy. Quote, physical disabilities must be reported to the line before tickets are issued. The right is reserved to refuse passage to anyone who, in the opinion of the company's medical advisors, is in such a state of health or physical condition as to be unfit to travel. Pregnancy must be regarded as a physical disability, and applications for passage from expectant mothers must be accompanied by a medical certificate. Closed quote. Look at the rates for shipping your vehicle. If somebody had a Cadillac or a Lincoln, that would probably fall in the weight range of 4,501 pounds to 5,500 pounds. That would cost $515 one way and $590 round trip in $1975. Quote, fuel tanks will be emptied and batteries will be disconnected before shipment. Under no circumstances may baggage or personal effects be left in vehicles, closed quote. Quote, the line's liability in connection with the transportation of automobiles being strictly limited, passengers are advised to protect themselves by insurance, closed quote. Quote, vehicles must be washed immediately prior to delivery to the baggage master at the pier before noon on the pier on the day prior to sailing, closed quote. Quote, domestic animals, bicycles, baby carriages, etc. Close quote. Quote, following rates apply for animals and various articles carried as baggage at owner's risk when accompanied by passengers. Close quote. Dogs, $70. Cats, $14. Birds in a cage, up to 2 birds, $7. Bicycles, $10. Carriage, $10. Strollers, folding are conveyed for free. Quote, dogs and cats require veterinarian health certificate and rabies inoculation for most countries. Consult your local Department of Agriculture, close quote. Visitors, quote, Circumstances permitting friends and relatives will be allowed on board during hours of embarkation. Closed quote. Quote, valuables and money. Quote, passengers are advised not to keep valuables or money in their staterooms, but to deposit such articles with the purser. As no charge is made, the responsibility of the company for loss or damages, however, arising, shall be governed by the conditions on the passage ticket. Closed quote. This was in the days prior to individual room safes. Here's the 1975 transatlantic schedule for the Alexander Pushkin and the Mikhail Lermentov. The Alexander Pushkin sailed to and from Montreal and Leningrad. The Mikhail Lermentov sailed to and from New York and Leningrad. I hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Mikhail Lermontov and Alexander Pushkin. What did you like most? Entertainment and cuisine with a Russian flair. Maintaining a transatlantic schedule during the 1970s. Being part of a fleet of 5 identical sister ships. How could a harbor pilot who should be familiar with their harbor crash into a reef and sink the Mikhail Lermontov? The successful career of the Alexander Pushkin in its later years as the Marco Polo. Being built during the 1960s and 1970s, yet the Alexander Pushkin and Mikhail Lermontov having half of their staterooms lacking private facilities. Please place your comments in the comments box below. Remember to hit the subscribe button to receive the latest exciting ocean liner content. Thank you from Ocean Liners on Print.